Have you given any thought to putting a marquee on the Ford Center outside? He thinks it's a wonderful idea.
Some people have suggested that, and we've been approached about putting a nice sign on the exterior of the Victory. That was in the original plans, but due to, I think the last estimate I saw for a sign on the Victory was probably $120,000. We haven't had any serious discussions about the marquee at the Ford Center, but it has been brought up before. Okay. And I would tell you, one of the things that will happen during the hotel process, it's probably a good time to think about that idea. The Ford Center, as great as it is, does not have enough storage capacity. I mean, they have stuff everywhere, and that's something that the city needs to address. We'll probably have to look at constructing some sort of, amenities building, I'll call it that, for lack of a better word, that helps with storage and other needs. So and that will be all sort of part of the hotel project, but it's at that time maybe we can sit down and look at what a marquee would look like. Not a bad idea. I don't know if it was ever discussed in the early stages or not. So, but you can report back to your doc.
I can. I feel much better.
Mayor, on the Renew Evansville draft plan, is there, you say upwards of $200 million total cost. Do you break down what and how soon customers will face rate increases?
We can't until
how much, how quickly?
Yeah, we can't yet until the federal, until the EPA and the DOJ say, okay, this is the plan and this is the timeline, and here's when your clock starts ticking. We don't know that piece yet. And as I understand the process, we won't know that until November. So I guess it's...
So the comment period will be over before the actual cost will be?
The comment period starts, and then you raise your hand and say, hey, I like this, have you thought about this, whatever. And then the federal government comes in and says, okay, we don't think you're making enough of an investment here. We think the community could afford more or less here. And then they'll say, here is the plan with these elements and here is the cost. And at that point, we would consider when the rates would have to go up. I guess it's possible, although, it's possible rates could start to go up as early as 2013, but I think it's all contingent upon when the feds rule on what our final plan is going to be.
And will that continue to be two-tiered city residents and county residents?
It depends on what happens with unification. Part of the unification plan calls for there to be an equalization of utility rates over a 3-year period.
Speaking of unification, you've obviously spoken in favor of it, yet Sheriff Williams has kind of been the face to this point of the SB. Is that more of your schedule, or are you going to take a more active role as it gets?
No, it's been a function of scheduling only at this point. I'm hosting a dinner Friday night with a group of leaders in the community that they would be all over the board on the issue, and you'll start to see me more out and about on it. It's just been, so new into office. We're still working. We're putting together our 2013 budget, so it's pretty much all hands on deck for sort of the business at hand right now. And so we're getting to the point where I can kind of break away a little more.
I never know when is the right time to use the word ironic, but a lot of pundits are saying that Sheriff Williams and you would be, if we have unified government, would be running against each other for mayor of Vandenberg County.
Really?
Or however. Yeah, I've heard that. I don't know what I'm asking you to comment on, but I think it's kind of interesting.
You just wanted to say that.
No comment.
I guess anything's possible. We've heard the same scenario.
Had to talk about it?
Pardon me?
Had to talk about it?
To Eric?
Yeah.
Well, here's how I'm approaching the office. Whether I'm in office 3 years or 4 years, depending on what happens with unification, or 7 or 8. I mean, there are things that we want to get done for the city, and from day one, I think we've set a pretty quick pace to what we try to accomplish, and we're going to stay on that pace. And it's not about who may run or who may not run. It's not about any of that in my eyes. So.
What do you, as someone who has been pro-unification for quite a while. I remember when I covered county commissioners, I think you were for the concept even at that time. What do you think the biggest misperception is among the no people? Or what the biggest misconception about the plan in general?
Well, I think that, you know, there are a couple things. One, I think people are generally fearful of what will happen to their taxes. Secondly, those who live in the rural part of the county have a genuine concern that their lifestyle is going to change, that they won't be able to go out and fire their gun. And what I've told each of those people that have expressed that, use that specific example, the county commissioners could go in next week and make an ordinance to prohibit you from firing your gun. Now, I don't think they're likely to, and I don't think they're any more likely to than a unified, you know, Metro Council in 2015 or 2016. I think it's the fear of the unknown.
So as someone who lives in the rural part of the county, could you give me the 3-minute Lloyd Winnecke sales pitch on why I should vote for this?
Sure. First of all, I think the mayor or single point of leadership is the best way to lead a community. It's difficult to pin down 3 county commissioners because they're part-time. They each have other jobs. Having been one, I really see how the distinction there. So I think a single point of leadership is absolutely best. The growth of this community, this region, is far more contingent upon the success of the mayor than who the county commissioners are, first and foremost. Secondly, as a county resident, as a rural resident, you're already enjoying the amenities of the city without the taxes on it. So I think to that extent, you should pay the taxes that you need to pay accordingly. The plan is set up so you only pay for the services that you receive. So it's the city can't encumber the county's debt, and the county can't encumber existing city debt. So I think it's a win-win. I think it's a way to combine services. We have a city department, or a city garage and a county garage. We have a city engineer and a county engineer. And while we have 14 jointly funded departments now, we could be even more efficient than what we can be. I think with the onset of property tax caps, and they're great because as property tax owners, we're winners in that regard. But for those of us trying to manage county and city government, we have less revenue, obviously, with which to manage. So I think in the long term, it's going to be easier to manage one level or fund one level of government rather than 2. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense.
But as somebody who, you know, lives in the county, like I said, what change will I notice personally?
It depends on where you live and if you're part of the general services district or the urban service district.
I mean, I'm already paying for my county garage. So how would it affect my life if I'm paying for a city-county garage as opposed to what I'm paying for now? What amenities do I need to pay for that I'm not paying for?
Hopefully we'll have a smaller budget as a result. Instead of funding 2 garages, we fund 1.
But are we sure of that?
Are we sure we're going to have...
Are we sure we'll be more efficient with this in the long run?
I don't know how we can't be. I mean, if you're asking if there's scientific proof, I'd say, you know, look to other communities.
Mm-hmm.
But Crow Harwith did its initial financial study, and they came back and they identified $750,000 or $800,000 in initial savings, but they didn't take into account what savings that future councils or future administrations would implement as a result of greater efficiencies by having 1 garage, 1 engineer's office, etc. There will be pressure on whomever the mayor is, or whoever sits on the Metro Council, to find efficiencies in government and to find savings. There will be additional savings.
Was it purely political, or is there a thought process behind not combining police agencies?
The idea at the time, the initial thought was that there would be 1 law enforcement agency, but there was such an outcry from the neighborhood associations, from the law enforcement communities. There was a general feeling among county commissioners and city council members who were kind of revising the plan that was presented to us by the Citizens Committee, that the whole thing, the whole process, the whole kit and caboodle would have less likelihood of passing if law enforcement were in there. So everyone said, okay, let's pull it out and see if the temperament changes, and I think it has.
One thing that, thinking about that meeting the other night, I guess you weren't there, Eric argued the yes side, but he came back a couple of times to the comment that once it passes, or if it passes, we'll figure this out or that out. I think the comment came in response to a question about the constitutional office of auditor versus the city controller's office, and that seemed to kind of, raise some eyebrows and red flags in the crowd. We'll figure it out. We'll figure this out or that out once it passes. Can you see why that might, not sound good to somebody on the fence?
Well, that came up during the course of our joint hearings, and the way and the initial transition committee was really identified to be citizens from the community, and as a result of that, we said, okay, we're going to make the transition team office holders. So the people you elect to office today will have a say in all those specific cases. Right now, under the plan, the city controller's office goes away, but the mayor does have I forget the title, budget director or whatever, who has a say in how, in city finances, but there is still a county auditor. But you wouldn't have however many people in the city controller's office working for that one person. So yes, I can see it, but there's so much diverse thought on how you would shape a new government, assuming it passes. To sit here today and say, okay, we're going to do this and this and this. I mean, I don't know if you sat through those meetings, but I mean, some of these issues were very contentious. So I don't know that you could, with a straight face, say, okay, this is how it's going to be today. Or, this time next year, we'll start having to make those decisions effective for a new government, January 2015.
Veering off, you sound more confident with the hotel proposal this time around. What has changed to make it more likely that you'll see more interest both from developers and that they'll be able to acquire whatever financing they need?
I think it's the process that we've used, which was clearly different. We went back and said, okay, why did the local developers all think 220 rooms was the right number? We found nothing in any files that said, there was empirical data that says that's the number that it needed to be. It looked to us like the local developers were sort of backing into that room number based on how they could finance the project. And we didn't think that was the right way to go about it. So we put everything on hold and sought the market analysis that came back and said, 240 to 270 in that range is the spot. So I think the developers have seen the process that we've undertaken. Rob Hunden, who we've retained as a consultant in the project, he does this for a living, so he's been out there talking to people. So I think just their overall process, I think, has instilled more confidence in potential developers.
Is the interest both local and outside the area among both proposals you've seen so far, or have you actually seen them?
I haven't seen any of the proposals, and I'm trying to remember what a couple of the emails have said, commenting on whether there were local, I don't remember. I mean, there may be by August 6th. I'm sitting here today, I don't remember. There were more, I will tell you this, there were more out-of-town developers than in town, if there were.
Is that different than before?
Another question on unification, have you done any polling, or do you have a sense of where the vote stands at this point?
The last poll that I'm aware of was sometime probably last fall, and it was pretty even money. $2 either way. But I'm sure that both sides will be doing polling, pretty quickly. Or at least one side will.
Is another of the things you'd like to accomplish the creation of a softball, baseball complex somewhere?
I think that project does have merit. I don't know where it needs to physically be. There was some discussion that it go out if you consider the old Hamilton Golf Course, that area, I've told Bob Warren and a couple of his commissioners, I would oppose that location just given the infrastructure of that area. You've got a railroad crossing right there. I mean, that road is just not built for that. You know, if it were to go somewhere, I would say, you know, out near the Gable Soccer Complex makes a lot of sense. Green River Road is in good shape. The next phase of that widening project will take it 900 feet north of Kansas Road. Millersburg is being redone now, so that could be a potential site.
And not the stadium property, that's completely outside.
Ixnay on the stadium property.
Speaking of that, great transition. Have you given any thought to the Roberts Park? We've heard estimates of what, $6 million?
6 to 8 is what we've been saying.
Any idea of where that's going to come from, or how long it might take over the next few years?
Well, what we've done in the first or second iteration of the 2013 budget is right now we're planning on putting earmarking $2 million a year for 4 years of riverboat money. It's our plan right now.
Back to the baseball, softball. Do you see value in such a project?
I do.
To the city?
I do. I think I don't remember all the statistics, but the last time that we had a serious discussion about it, I mean, I think they had pretty good data that shows it drives tourism to the community. And you look at the success of other cities. Owensboro's had great success. There are all kinds of communities in Indiana that have something like that. So it's definitely a tourism boom. Where it ends up is, you know, is the million-dollar question.
Is there any concern about current upkeep of parks and how you handle a new facility on top of what you already have?
There is, and we're trying to address that in our 2013 budget. And once we've, Denise Johnson, Parks Director, and I have had some very serious discussions about how to address that. And I think once we put the finishing touches on the budget, we'll be able to address that more specifically. But we have a couple of ideas that we think will be helpful in that regard.
Any general you can share? You know,
well, I mean, generally we need more human resources at the problem. So
is it right now just a matter of being stretched too thin with what you have, or?
I'm not convinced of that. I'm convinced initially it might have been maybe a lack of focus. I think we've done a better job so far of being focused and distributing our human resources in the most efficient manner. But I think if we have some more human resource tools, that will help us overall.
Mayor, 7 months in, what are you most pleased with so far, and what's been the most vexing?
I think the most pleasing thing is easily the response we get from just about anywhere we go. People want to be a part of Evansville. They want to be part of, hey, if I had, I've said this several times, if I had $1 for the number of people who have said, hey, if I can help you, just call me. You know, that'd be a nice down payment to one of my grandson's college educations. I mean, people are genuine, and it doesn't matter if they're a Democrat or Republican. They want to see the city succeed. So I think that is easily the most rewarding and satisfying. I'm not sure I would have a most vexing. I mean, just the demands of the time demands are so incredible. Once a month I have lunch with a group of employees. We select them at random. We go to a local restaurant. I buy their lunch, and it's a chance for them to get to know me get to know them, and they can throw out ideas about their department, or we can just sit there and talk about, you know, the Cards' chances of winning the World Series again. But I was walking down the street yesterday to go to that luncheon, and a woman comes running out of Main Gate. Mayor, we're having something at Glenwood School tonight from 4 to 6. Can you be there? I'm like, oh man, I was really counting on office time till about 7 or 7:30. I said, I probably can't tonight. So just the demands of the time, and people they're appreciative if you can be somewhere, and we're trying to be as accessible as possible, both in our business day, but also in our personal life. We go to a lot of summer socials and just events, just so people can know that we are approachable. But just the demands of the time, I think,